They suddenly visited my house. My eldest son and his wife. Surprisingly, his wife didn't work and spent her days leisurely. In the end, she seemed to rely on my money, and when she felt let down,
You're really useless. Are you just a mere pension recipient? Leave this house and never show up in front of us again.
I wonder what they think of me. My name is Susan. About 30 years ago, I was blessed with a son, John, and I've dedicated myself to raising him with all my heart. However, the journey of his growth wasn't always easy. In fact, I could feel the hardships and trials of life through it. And about 2 years before that, my dear mother passed away from an illness. Almost fatefully, my father followed her soon after. My parents were hard-working individuals, and even as a child, I was deeply impressed by their dedication and passion. I owe them a debt of gratitude for raising me so well, and I deeply appreciate them. Losing such parents was an immeasurable loss, but a man I met through work helped alleviate some of that pain. He was a bit older than me, and we often interacted through work. Each time, he was considerate and kind towards me. Through our repeated interactions, I gradually developed feelings for him. On the other hand, I felt he might have special feelings for me too. Through such exchanges, we naturally began dating and eventually get married. And our beloved son, John, was born. Through marrying him, I truly felt happiness and stability. I quit my job for a while and dedicated myself to housework and raising John. However, this quiet and stable life was suddenly shattered. Unbelievably, my husband contracted an unexpected illness and passed away when John was just 2 years old. It felt as if our bright daily life was instantly covered in darkness, filled with shock and sorrow. But I had a future in John. Raising John became my life's purpose and goal. Financially, thanks to the inheritance from my parents and husband, I faced no difficulties. However, I never intended to remain a stay-at-home mom forever. I wanted to return to society and work in some capacity. When John started elementary school, I began looking for a part-time job at a large supermarket in the neighborhood. The salary and benefits weren't my primary concerns initially. What mattered most to me was having weekends off and being able to return home by around 4 p.m. before sunset. I was very cautious when choosing my working hours, feeling a responsibility as a mother and wanting to raise John with care by myself. However, the role of a single parent was more challenging than anticipated. Especially when John reached middle school and then high school, his rebelliousness towards me became much more pronounced and frequent.
You're so annoying. I'll choose my own way of living.
John would often say harsh words like this without hesitation, and his frequency of staying out all night with friends, returning home at dawn, increased. At work, I asked a mom friend who had years of parenting experience.
Boys, especially during adolescence, are like that. After some time, I'm sure John will calm down.
She encouraged me. Yet, deep inside, I wondered if John would ever really settle down. When John expressed his wish to attend college, I supported him wholeheartedly. However, I still sensed the rebellious spirit typical of adolescence in his behavior. I often found myself wishing my husband was still with me, wondering how much growing up with a single parent was affecting John. Yet, until the day John found a stable job, I pledged to prioritize his growth and happiness. Thankfully, though a small company, John found his path and started working confidently. Seeing this made me immensely proud and relieved. Then, John decided to take a new step. He decided to start living on his own. With John living by himself, I felt a void in my heart. However, watching John live independently made me feel that my excessive worries and pressures for him were gradually reducing. The next milestone I hoped for was John finding a wonderful girlfriend and choosing to get married. Despite this, I seldom heard any happy news or discussions related to marriage, and my daily life remained monotonous. Time flew, and it became time for me to retire from my long tenure at the supermarket. Specifically, as I approached my 60th birthday, my retirement was imminent. I decided to relax and enjoy the pension I would receive, taking a step back from my busy life. In the midst of this peaceful routine, I received an unexpected call. To my surprise, it was from John. It was unusual for him to call, as I was the one who usually reached out. John's sudden call made me feel something was coming.
Actually, I've started dating someone recently, and we've decided to get married. I'd like to introduce her in a few days. so please be prepared.
John said calmly. I was taken aback and asked, "Really, it's so sudden. How did you two meet?" I hadn't anticipated John making such an announcement. My heart was racing. It was such a surprise that for a moment, I thought he might be joking. John met his future wife, Dana, through a dating app. In my youth, such modes of meeting were non-existent, and this new form of modern romance was a revelation. I had some reservations but came to terms understanding it's a new norm for the younger generation. Nonetheless, I was eager to meet my son's prospective wife, looking forward to the day with excitement and anticipation. Yet, when I first saw Dana, she was beyond my imagination, donning flamboyant makeup and a unique fashion style, appearing as if she just walked off a fashion show ramp. As she approached me with a smile,
Hello, you must be John's mother? I'm Dana. Nice to meet you.
she greeted me with an incredibly open and free-spirited attitude. Seeing Dana's behavior, I was curious about her upbringing and social circle. John, sensing the atmosphere, smiled and spoke to Dana.
Dana's name means dancing beautifully. That's also part of why she was given that name.
As John explained the origin of Dana's name, I momentarily hesitated about how to react. I wondered if John might show a different side of himself if he were dating a more subdued woman. However, I'm curious about how Dana's presence will change John in the future. Yet, since Dana is the woman John chose, it's not my place to interfere. If I can envision a future where they're happy together, that's all I can ask for. I can only hope for such a future. However, John then made another unexpected announcement.
Actually, we've decided to start living together in this house from next month.
I was so surprised by John's statement that my eyes widened and I let out a gasp. I had assumed they'd start their new life in a new house or apartment. I never imagined they'd move into my home. Really? Here? Wouldn't it be better to start your new life somewhere else? I asked in astonishment.
Why live here? It's simple. We can save a lot on living expenses. You know how important it is to use money wisely these days, right?
Dana emphasized the financial benefits, and John seemed to support her view.
She's right. A house with more people is lively. And isn't it a bit lonely for you to live in this big house by yourself?
While I thought there was some truth to John's words, I was hesitant about living under the same roof as Dana.
Helping each other out in life is what matters most, right? Let's live together and support one another.
Dana argued persuasively. I was at a loss for words. I was so conflicted about how to respond. While having John nearby was reassuring, I thought living with Dana might also allow me to see her good side. With these thoughts in mind, I decided to allow them to live with me. At that time, I had no idea that my decision would later lead to deep regrets. Besides the living room, our house has 2 private rooms. When my husband was still alive, each of us had our own room. However, as John grew older, we decided to sleep in the same room and set aside the other room as John's private space. Given this background, after Dana and John moved in, one room became their bedroom and the other remained mine. The living room was to be a shared space for all 3 of us to spend time together. When I explained this room arrangement to them, both seemed content with no complaints. But once we began our life together, their attitudes and behaviors started to change. What surprised me most was that Dana would sleep late into the morning. Wondering if there was a reason, I asked Dana about it. "Dana, how's your job going?" Dana replied with an inscrutable expression.
I don't feel like going to work anymore. The salary was far from what I expected and I felt that my efforts weren't appreciated, so I decided to quit.
I was taken aback by Dana's response. As I learned that Dana wasn't working, doubt and mistrust rapidly grew in my heart. Despite being in her 30s, her way of thinking was incomprehensible to me. Above all, I hadn't expected to feel such a difference in perception from day one. However, everyone has different ways of thinking and values. I optimistically thought that there might come a time when Dana would want to work again, and I let it pass without any further comment. However, Dana's behavior started to exceed my tolerance level. There was no sign of Dana looking for work again, and she seemed to spend most of her time lounging around the house. Even though she had her own room, Dana often watched TV in the living room and relaxed. Furthermore, she began to eat the snacks I'd set aside for myself without even asking for permission. I reached my limit with Dana's careless actions and felt compelled to warn her. "Dana, please stop taking things from someone else's refrigerator without asking." However, Dana showed no sign of realizing her rudeness or feeling out of place.
Someone else's house? Wait a minute. I live here too, right? I told you, didn't I? Living together saves on living expenses. By sharing things in the house, we become more economical.
She retorted as if I was the one making a mistake. I was surprised by her reaction and was at a loss for words for a moment. Being economical was Dana's own perspective. In reality, she was just using what I had bought with my own money without asking. I was so astounded by her unexpected reply that I didn't even know what to say to Dana. But my dissatisfaction and questions about her only grew. Unable to contain these feelings, I later asked John about Dana's attitude and their future plans. I felt that John himself couldn't be satisfied with the current situation. "John, I'm curious, what does Dana plan to do? She seems to be staying home every day without doing anything in particular." As our conversation continued, John looked a bit surprised and replied,
"Even if Dana doesn't work every day, it's her choice. Dana is my precious wife, and I feel happy just by having her."
From his words, it seemed John was only looking at things from his own perspective and feelings. I thought deeply. Why did John love a woman like Dana so much? As a mother, it was hard for me to understand. He's the son I've cherished and raised for so many years. Yet now that he's an adult, he's making these choices. I was finding it increasingly difficult to fully understand what was in John's heart. Moreover, since moving into this house, John hadn't been contributing fairly to the living expenses. I thought about it. While John and Dana might have financial difficulties under the guise of cooperation, it felt like they were simply relying on my money. Recognizing this fact, my mistrust towards them grew. I genuinely began to feel that I shouldn't allow them to spend unnecessary money. So I came up with a plan. Even though it might be a bit of a hassle, I decided to buy only the snacks I wanted to eat each time, and just enough ingredients for each evening's dinner, keeping only the bare minimum in the refrigerator. However, Dana started to show signs of dissatisfaction with this new lifestyle. All of a sudden, Dana opened the refrigerator door and exclaimed,
"Hey, why has the fridge been so empty these past few days? There used to be a lot of stock. I was looking forward to having a beer after so long."
Dana's tone was mixed with anger as she vented her frustrations at me. "If you want something to drink, why not ask John or get a job and buy what you need yourself? I'm living on my pension now, so I can't afford much." As I responded, Dana seemed momentarily lost for words. If she had been more cooperative and grateful regularly, maybe I would have been more understanding. Stricken by my words, she silently returned to her room. However, the situation drastically changed the next day.
"If we were to have children, there won't be enough room in this house. Maybe someone should leave."
Her words, indirectly suggesting that I should move out, left a chill in my heart.
People who don't contribute and just leech off others are called parasites. Do we even need such people?
It was clear she considered me a useless entity. I wondered how she could say such things without having a job or income herself. I looked at John, hoping for an answer, but he just nodded in agreement with Dana's words. At that moment, her confidence grew.
Honestly, I don't see any reason for you to be in this house. I never expected to be so disappointed. Without John's support, you'd be helpless. Leave this house and never show up in front of us again."
Through her words and attitude, it became clear they were staying in my house for the money. It seems they misunderstood my frugal lifestyle as financial strain. Under these circumstances, it's hard to say who's at fault, but once such words were spoken, things couldn't be mended. My feelings as a parent became overshadowed by John's affection for Dana. This incident solidified my resolve. I decided to show John and Dana how out of touch they were with reality. "I've decided. I'm leaving this place and cutting ties." With that firm resolve, I immediately took action. After reaching out to several key contacts, I made up my mind to leave the house. Watching my decision, Dana somehow smiled smugly. Meanwhile, John seemed very calm. However, my words about cutting ties indicate my strong determination not to associate with John and the others any further. Days passed, and multiple missed call notifications appeared on my phone. The callers were none other than John and Dana. I never answered, deliberately ignoring them. I had already decided to sever ties. Perhaps John and the others realized some truth. The real estate agency I trust in business went to the house where John and the others live.
This property will be on the market soon. Therefore, please vacate by the end of this week.
John and Dana were probably shocked and confused by this sudden notice. Dana might have mistakenly believed the house I used to live in was John's. Seeing my modest lifestyle, she probably assumed I was financially struggling. John too was misled by Dana's misconception. It's evident he knows little about my real financial situation. To clarify the truth and correct their misunderstanding, the real estate agency probably explained further.
Where did you get that idea? Your mother owns multiple buildings and condos in the city center, and just from those rents, she earns about $1,500,000 annually. I can't believe you mistook such a wonderful woman for being poor. This house is, of course, her property.
My family has a historical construction-related business, and my father held an important position in it. The industry is mainly male-dominated. I, being a woman, didn't hold a position and lived a step back. However, thanks to the business my father built, he accumulated vast assets, owning numerous buildings and condos. Many major companies rent spaces in my buildings, and the condos I own are always fully occupied due to their good location and facilities. However, when my father suddenly passed away, these vast assets were inherited by me. This event happened before John was born, so it's understandable he didn't know. I initially planned to honestly tell John about our family assets once he was mature enough. However, as John's adolescence seemed endless, and he eventually married that woman, I suppressed my urge to reveal this crucial information. As a result, John might have just thought of me as a simple supermarket clerk. Given Dana's character and actions, she would certainly try to exploit my wealth once she knew about it. In reality, John and the others faced even greater difficulties than imagined. According to my long-associated real estate agency, Dana can't even return to her own family's home. From Dana's behavior and words, it seems her relationship with her family is beyond repair. With no other options, John and the others had to choose to live in an old, nearly collapsing apartment. Now back in a financially challenging situation, they no longer have trustworthy relatives or friends. After enduring a tough life for a long time, John seemed to finally face reality. He harshly confronted Dana.
Get it together. If you keep dragging things out like this, nothing's going to change.
But it seemed like Dana had completely given into her stagnant life, showing no signs of looking for a job. Under these circumstances, their relationship continued to deteriorate. The cramped and unsanitary apartment became more and more chaotic, and John seemed to have reached his limit.
I'm done. I can't take it anymore. I'm cutting ties with you.
John firmly declared the end, heading in the direction of severing ties with Dana. Dana once again found herself isolated, and in the end, it seemed she had no place to return to. Admittedly, John's decisions weren't flawless, but Dana's foolishness surpassed even that, which may have made this outcome inevitable. According to a story from a later date, Dana had taken up a live-in job at a factory to make ends meet, managing to secure meals under the strict supervision of a boss. On the other hand, since leaving my house, I've been spending my days quietly in an apartment I own. After about a year, I received a message out of the blue. It was from John. Opening the message, it was evident that John had chosen his words carefully.
Mom, it's hard to express in words, but I feel truly sorry. I'm filled with regret. I'm trying my best to be independent and live on my own now.
I had cut ties with Dana, but not with John. Seeing John's growth, I wish to meet him soon. I want to have a genuine heart-to-heart conversation.
Could you disappear from our site? When I went to the wedding of my brother, a doctor, and the daughter of a company president, the bride told me that the word middle school graduate was written in large characters on my place card. In addition to my brother and Dr. Father, it Appears that the bride, who was about to join our family, didn't like me also. Should we take that company down here? Someone whispered to me as I was about to depart. In despair, I made up my mind and gave a strong nod in response to those statements. I'm 40 years old, and my name is Kent Morgan. I don't have a partner. My sibling is 2 years younger than me. Kyle is his name. Kyle was a standout student and athlete, whereas I was only a middle school graduate. Our parents had great expectations for him, as he was the perfect combination of intelligence and strength. Kyle was headed to follow in our family's long-standing tradition of producing doctors. Our mother is a nurse, and our father practices medicine. However, I was ill from an early age and was unable to attend high school because I was getting ready for surgery immediately following middle school. My father and Kyle were harsh, accusing me of being overly reliant on my mother, who always supported me and felt sorry for me. They frequently made irrational accusations, such as attributing my ill health to my frail soul. The number of times I wish I had been born healthy is incalculable. However, I kept those feelings to myself because I knew my mother would blame herself if I ever expressed them. Nevertheless, I wasn't the kind to let my illness define who I was. I will do what I truly want to do someday. I thought once the surgery was over and I had calmed down, I wished to be independent of my family and live independently. I would leave my family as soon as possible if becoming a doctor was the only way to win their acceptance. In my heart, I made that decision. Following my middle school graduation, I had a successful surgery. I started implementing my strategies 6 months later. I began by working part-time at a restaurant. They greeted me with warmth and said they didn't give a damn about my academic background, which alarmed me, because I just had a middle school diploma. It seems that my positive smile made a good impression, which is how I got hired. I was thrilled to hear Shane later say that I hadn't even noticed it. I immersed myself in learning the work and became an expert in customer service after that. I turned 20 before I realized it. I had saved up enough money by then to live independently, which significantly cut down on the amount of time I spent with my family. My father and Kyle had made fun of me when I first started working, claiming that someone with only a middle school diploma wouldn't succeed in anything. However, they ignored me when I informed them that I was leaving. It shocked me that they didn't remark something like, "You'll never last living on your own," as I had anticipated. I now live comfortably and independently apart from my family. I hear about my father and Kyle's lives from my mother, whom I sometimes see or stay in contact with. Apparently, Kyle graduated medical school and became a doctor. He's now working alongside my father, helping run his hospital. It's impressive how he manages to thrive under the watchful eye of someone as strict as our father. That thought often crosses my mind. Looking back, the gap between Kyle and me had always been clear. This realization hit me once again, but I couldn't let it get to me. I resolved to focus on the work I'd been given and give it my all. With that renewed determination, I poured myself into my job. Before I knew it, I had turned 39. Though many things had happened during that time, I spent every day meaningfully. Then, at the end of the year, I received some surprising news. While visiting my parents' home, as I did every New Year, Kyle had received a marriage proposal. The bride-to-be was the daughter of a company president, a woman named Anne. I didn't hear this directly from Kyle, but rather from my mother, with whom I kept in touch. At that point, they were only engaged, but they planned to register their marriage and hold the wedding. After my 40th birthday, I naturally assumed I wouldn't be invited to the wedding, but during that year's New Year visit to my family home, something unexpected happened. You heard about my wedding from Mom, right? I'd like you to come to the ceremony if you can. "You're welcome to bring a friend along, too," Kyle said, handing me a wedding invitation. It had been so long since Kyle had spoken to me directly that I was initially taken aback. But as I held the invitation, the reality slowly set in. I had been invited to Kyle's wedding as a member of the family. Overwhelmed with joy, I stared at the invitation for a while, which made Kyle chuckle. "See you at the wedding. Oh, and I'll introduce you to my fiancée." And before then, Kyle said this before leaving in a hurry, likely off to work. I was deeply surprised by how much he seemed to have changed, and I began to think he was making an effort to bridge the gap between us. I decided to let go of the past as well. For now, I just wanted to celebrate the happiness of the couple. I stared at the invitation, feeling as if it were my own joy to cherish. Time flew by, and soon it was the day of the wedding. Before the ceremony, Kyle introduced me to Anne. She was friendly, polite, and even treated me with respect. I couldn't help but think that meeting her had been the reason for Kyle's change. My father's attitude toward me remained the same, but the fact that my relationship with Kyle had improved was enough for me. My mother seemed happy to see us getting along, and she smiled more often than before. Knowing how much she had endured taking care of me in the past, her smiles filled me with gratitude. After checking in at the reception, my mother and I entered the hall. It was packed with Kyle and Anne's coworkers and friends. Their connections were impressively wide. Though I was overwhelmed by the sheer number of people, I was proud of Kyle for how far he had come. Today, I genuinely wanted to celebrate Kyle and Anne's happiness. But then I saw the name card at my assigned seat, and my body froze. What is this? My mother, standing beside me, covered her mouth with her hand. Her face was pale. Some nearby guests even snickered when they saw it. On my name card, instead of my name, the words "middle school graduate" were written. Who on earth would do something like this? "It was us, you middle school graduate." A familiar voice came from behind me, making me freeze on the spot. I didn't even need to turn around to know who it was, but the overwhelming sense of despair was crushing. "Kyle, why would you do this to me?" My mother turned around before I could, confronting Kyle with trembling words. I forced myself to turn as well, needing to see it for myself. There stood Kyle, laughing mockingly alongside the bride. I didn't want to believe it, but the look on Kyle's face confirmed it. It was the same look he used to give me as a child whenever he looked down on me. Why isn't it obvious, Mom? Because he's just a middle school graduate. I never imagined there'd be a middle school graduate in the family I was about to marry into, Kyle said, laughing at me together with Anne. It's hard to believe what I'm witnessing, but there's no mistaking it. It's real. I swallowed the anger rising within me and questioned them. It's true I'm a middle school graduate, but so what? Is it really that shameful to be one? Is it such an unforgivable thing? Of course it is. You're already a stain on our elite family, and now you're affecting my wife's family too. Even so, and pushed through her family's objections to be with me. You should be grateful for her generosity, Kyle sneered. Apparently, Anne's family, being the wealthy family of a company president, also disliked me. When they learned my future brother-in-law was a middle school graduate, they initially told her to break off the engagement with Kyle. However, the bond between Anne and Kyle was strong, and I didn't cause their relationship to fall apart. Eventually, her family had no choice but to accept their union, which brings us to today. We almost lost the chance to marry because of you, Kyle continued. So Anna and I came up with this plan to teach you a lesson. We pretended to be friendly and supportive to set you up, just so we could humiliate you at our wedding. Kyle's words sent a ripple of shock through the venue. From the way he tells the story, I sound like the villain. It's as if I was the one who tried to break them up. By the way, it was and who came up with the idea to destroy you. She's my wonderful wife, who truly understands me. We don't need a middle school graduate like you in our elite family. So, Kent, I'd like to ask you to disappear from our lives for good. Could you kindly leave and never show your face again?" And smiled, her smile dazzling, almost like a sound effect could accompany it, but her words cut deeply. I'm left speechless, but it's true that I nearly ruined their marriage. Maybe, for their happiness, I should bow out gracefully. Fine, I won't stay. I'll leave the family as you wish. I promise. Really? Oh, I'm so happy. Thank you so much for respecting our wishes, Kent. We'll make sure to be very happy together, won't we, Kyle? And said, overjoyed, speaking with a bright smile. Kyle nodded in agreement. The two of them left me behind and headed toward the stage for their wedding ceremony. I can only watch their retreating figures in stunned silence. The people around Kyle, including his co-workers and friends, quickly walked to their seats. No one said a word to me. Even my mother was frozen, unable to say a word. She must be at a loss for how to comfort me in this situation. I can't blame her. Overwhelmed by despair, I slump into a nearby chair. I never suspected that the two people who had opened up to me so much would harbor such intense hatred toward me. But if I stayed here any longer, Kyle might eventually come over angry and tell me to get out of his sight. Just as I decided I had to leave before that happened, it happened. Shall we destroy that company? I heard someone approach me from behind and call out to me. Startled by the voice, I froze. Kyle had said that I could bring a friend of mine to the ceremony, but I didn't have any friends because of my frail health in school. So I asked my secretary, Jessica, to accompany me. The shock of being betrayed by Kyle and had made me forget for a moment, but I nodded, firmly at her words. I had once wished so strongly for their happiness, but now I'm overwhelmed with the desire to prove them wrong. Who is this? My mother, sitting next to me, looked between Jessica and me with confusion and hesitated to ask. Now that I think about it, I'd never introduced Jessica to my mother. Mom, this is your first time meeting her, right? This is Jessica, my secretary. She came with me today as my secretary. But I thought you worked at a restaurant? Sorry, Mom. I should have told you sooner. I quit the restaurant job and started my own company. I'm the president now. When I revealed my role as a company president, my mother was so shocked she covered her mouth with her hand. I thought it wasn't necessary to talk about myself, but I might have been wrong. If I had told Kyle and earlier that I'd started my own company and become a president, maybe none of this would have happened. With that thought, I stood up from my seat. I couldn't just sit idly by. Sharpening my gaze, I looked toward Kyle and Anne, who were radiating happiness as though they hadn't just spat cruel insults at me moments ago. Leaving the seat labeled middle school graduate, I made my way toward the two of them. Hey, what's your deal? Didn't we just tell you to get out of our sight? Why are you crawling back? Here. Kyle's face contorted with irritation as he saw me approaching the stage, where the bride and groom stood, and suddenly burst into laughter as she looked at me. Oh my, Kent, are you so uneducated that you can't even understand words? At this point, I almost feel sorry for you. Anne's words made Kyle laugh along with her as they mocked me yet again. But I remained calm, looking at the two of them. The ones to be pitted were Kyle and Anne. They didn't realize they were about to face their own downfall. I just have one last thing to say. I said, I realized I haven't introduced the person who came here with me today. I thought you'd like to meet them. Ha! Like I care about whoever came with you. What? Another middle school graduate like you. Ignoring their sneers, I introduced Jessica. This is Jessica, my secretary. Since I don't have any friends, I asked her to accompany me. Today, Your secretary? Don't make me laugh. You probably hired her from some agency. An agency? No. I am Mr. Morgan's personal secretary, and I assist him in his role as president. What? When Kyle mocked me, Jessica immediately and firmly denied it. Both Kyle and Anne were now visibly shocked to hear Jessica refer to me as president. Ha! My brother a president. Jessica, it was you don't have to go out of your way to humor him by calling him that. Actually, now's a good time to clear things up. I really am a president. I pulled a business card case from my suit pocket, took out a card, and handed it to them. They snatched it from me and quickly scanned its contents. Sure enough, the card bore my name, the company's name, and my title as president. This is just a piece of paper. Paper? You must have had it faked. Want to confirm it? I pointed to the phone number listed on the card. Clearly flustered, Kyle clicked his tongue in irritation, but reluctantly pulled out his phone from his tuxedo pocket and called the number. After a while, a staff member answered. When he gave them my name to confirm, they indeed said I was the president. After ending the call, he began trembling uncontrollably. See, it's true, isn't it? No way. It could just be someone with the same name. That's not true. Kyle was interrupted by Anne, who had been silent and motionless ever since she checked my business card. For good reason, too. She was the daughter of a company president. Seeing the name of my company, she probably couldn't hide her shock. Her face had turned pale. What do you mean, and why are you acting like this? That's because the company on this card, it's one of my father's business partners. Anne's words sent shockwaves through not only Kyle, but the entire venue. A business partner? So what? There's no way his company is bigger than your father's, right? No! It's actually the other way around. If my father lost a contract with this company, it could lead to bankruptcy. That's impossible. Reality hit Kyle like a truck, leaving him utterly speechless, and seemed to have already admitted defeat. Her head hung low in despair. It looks like I've successfully proven that I'm truly a company president, I said. Kyle glared at me, his fists clenched in frustration. Our eyes met in a clash of triumph and bitterness, but I decided it wasn't worth engaging with him further. Instead, I shifted my gaze to Anne, who had clearly given up. It seems your father, Mr. Mason, isn't here yet due to his business trip. I imagine he'll arrive soon to see you in your wedding dress. However, since I'm leaving now, I'd like to leave him a message. A message? Anne's voice trembled, her nervousness almost laughable. Looking at her now, I could see just how foolish she truly was. Please let him know that I intend to terminate our business contract. He can ask you for the details. If you do that, my father's company will go bankrupt. That's cruel. I'm perfectly fine with that. After all, we're no longer family. We're complete strangers. Besides, wasn't it you who told me to disappear from your life? Rest assured, I'm quite good at following through on my promises. I smiled at her, and with that, Anne's face turned even paler as she collapsed to her knees. Ignoring her, I turned my back to Kyle and Anne and signaled to Jessica, I'm assigning you a task. Immediately terminate the contract with the bride's family's company. Understood, Mr. Morgan, Jessica said with a polite bow, and she followed me as I descended from the stage. On our way out, I noticed Kyle's friends and colleagues staring at me in disbelief, but I didn't care. Mom, I'll be in touch. I'm heading out now. After returning to my seat, I turned to my mother, who still looked utterly shocked, as if she couldn't believe what had happened. I said my final words to her and headed toward the exit of the venue with Jessica. Just then, as if to block our path, someone appeared in front of us. What do you think you're doing, Dad? You become a president and you pull this kind of stunt? You're nothing but a curse to this family. The person who stood in our way was none other than my father. He too seemed shocked by the fact that I was the president. Perhaps due to his extreme agitation, his words were harsher than usual. He pointed toward the stage where and was crying uncontrollably, and Kyle was trying to console her. At a glance, it might seem like I had ruined the wedding, but the truth was, they had brought this upon themselves. So now you're talking to me, huh? After all this time of ignoring me, you show up just to say that maybe I really am a curse to you. Reflecting on the time when I was physically weak compared to now, I said those words, but at this moment, I realize once again that something I didn't have back then is now my greatest support. And that's fine. I don't expect anything from this family anymore. There's no need for us to reconcile. I found something far more important than family. I glanced at Jessica, and when she noticed, a soft smile formed on her lips. I have my company, my employees, and a reliable secretary in Jessica. With them by my side, I have nothing to fear. What happened to Kyle and is their own doing. They're wolves in sheep's clothing, an elite family. How long are you going to cling to that illusion? A person's worth isn't defined by their education or their past. Whether your actions were right or wrong will be revealed in time. You insolent. Ignoring my father's outburst, Jessica and I walked past him and finally left the venue. After walking some distance and leaving the venue's property, I suddenly stopped and sank to the ground. Are you all right, Mr. Morgan? Jessica crouched beside me, her voice filled with concern. Since I had told her about my health, issues, and family history, she likely assumed that the confrontation with my family had taken a toll on me. Sorry, I'm fine. The tension just hit me all at once. Even someone as composed as you gets nervous, Mr. Morgan? That's surprising. She seemed genuinely taken aback, but I quickly corrected her. I'm human too. Of course, I get nervous. Even though he's my father, it took a lot of courage to face him and speak for the first time in a long while. My hands are still trembling, but I felt relieved I had said everything I wanted to say. Jessica, thank you for accompanying me today. I feel like I've finally let go of everything tied to my family. I'm glad I could be of help. Standing up, I expressed my gratitude to Jessica, who smiled warmly at me in return. Later, my mother contacted me and shared what had happened at the venue after I left. Apparently, the wedding had turned into something resembling a funeral. Some guests were puzzled as to why the family didn't know that the middle school graduate older brother was actually a company president. Others found the whole situation ridiculous and left early, reportedly crying nonstop and playing the victim. But when her father, Mr. Mason, arrived and she explained what had happened, he was absolutely furious. He stormed out of the wedding and began bombarding my phone with calls. Of course, I didn't answer a single one. The contract termination, Jessica handled it all perfectly. She truly is an exceptional secretary. The day after the wedding, poetic justice came swiftly for both Kyle and Anne. Kyle's behavior toward me at the wedding became the talk of his hospital. He was criticized as heartless and cruel, and his reputation within the medical community plummeted. No one wanted to associate with him, and even my father, as the hospital director, faced backlash for failing to guide his son properly. The hospital's reputation crumbled. It was no surprise. Doctors are supposed to stand by their patients, and yet my father and Kyle, despite knowing I was once physically weak, continued to harass me, using my middle school education as an excuse. This behavior ended up drawing the resentment of other doctors and nurses who attended the wedding. As for Anne, joining Kyle in mocking me, who was one of her father's business partners, and losing the contract, she was fired from her job. She had been working at her father's company in preparation to take over someday, but that door was firmly shut. Mr. Mason disowned her, severing ties completely after terminating the contract with my company. Mr. Mason tried to get back on track. However, his efforts were in vain and the company went bankrupt with no place to go and turned to Kyle, suggesting they move in together as husband and wife. But Kyle wasn't having it. This all started because you came up with a plan to humiliate my brother. If not for that, everything would have been fine. He not only rejected his new wife, but also placed all the blame on her. Enraged, she fought back, tracing the problem to its roots. It was you who revealed that your brother was a middle school graduate in the first place. Their arguments escalated, and on the very first day of their marriage, they had a massive fight. Soon after, they decided to get a divorce. The hospital's reputation continued to deteriorate, and with patients and staff abandoning it eventually closed down. My father and Kyle, who had run the hospital together, found themselves blacklisted in the medical field. Unable to secure employment, they ended up taking on part-time jobs to make ends meet. It seems that H also ended up switching to night work. However, life has been tough for her as she was a company president's daughter until recently, and she's struggling to hold down a job. I heard all about what happened to Kyle and the others from my mother after the wedding. My mother divorced my father. We were no longer bound by the toxicity of my father and Kyle and had begun living a freer, happier life. Wanting to repay my mother for all her sacrifices, I gifted her a luxurious apartment. Though she said it was too much for her, I insisted. After all, she had raised me with love and care even when I was weak and sickly. This was the least I could do. I'm glad you were able to make your mother happy, Mr. Morgan. Jessica, who had listened to my story about my family, said this with a gentle smile. It's all thanks to my dependable secretary, yet she never shows it on the surface. I truly think she is a remarkable person. As a company president, I am far from perfect, but I vow to follow Jessica's example and continue striving to grow as both a professional and a human being.
Hey, there is absolutely nothing wrong with the directions I gave you. Furthermore, the program is a total mess. The project manager angrily yelled at me. I checked again and found nothing wrong, so I said calmly, "It's okay. There isn't an issue." "That's not possible. Why are you unable to simply do what I say? Do you realize that I don't need your opinions? You, a graduate of State University, and I, a distinguished Harvard graduate, are on different levels." The business officials from headquarters were yelling at me and wrongly blaming me. I was questioned by one of the executives. "Did you fix it yourself?" "Yes," I just said, grinning. "Then it's fine," the executive said. "There shouldn't be any issues," the project manager said, incredulously. Dave is my name. I currently work as a programmer at the Los Angeles office of a large software corporation with its headquarters located in New York. I haven't worked for this company for very long, but I changed jobs and joined around a year ago. I'm still figuring out the workplace culture, or more accurately, I try to avoid bringing attention to myself and maintain a distance from people because I don't like to stand out. Even though I have no issue finishing the tasks that are given to me, I deliberately attempt to be as invisible as possible, which makes me somewhat of a recluse among my coworkers in the same department. I simply am that. My work is really simple. I just finish the things that my supervisors give me. I was first referred to as a yes man, yet I consistently finished my task accurately and on schedule. Since meeting deadlines in this field demands a certain amount of skill, the complaints soon ceased. Nowadays, the general public views me as someone who gets the job done without making a big impression. To be honest, I believe it to be the ideal balance, and I approach my profession with that attitude each and every day. If you ask me if I find my work monotonous, I might say that it is, but I actually like my current workplace, where I can do my tasks effectively and leave on time most of the time. Dave, Macy, do you have a moment? Our manager Eugene shouted out one day as I was going about my daily business. When I first joined the company, Macy and I had barely spoken at the welcome party. We approached Eugene with perplexed looks. I apologize for calling you out so abruptly. It's been a year since you joined our department, Dave. I believe it's time to give you a project because you've done a fantastic job on your assignments. Can you help him and work on it together, Macy, because it's your first time? After giving me a rather ambivalent gaze, Macy said, sure. It must be unpleasant to be paired with someone who is so reticent and non-existent. My sympathies were with Macy. I worked hard on the given project because I didn't want to bother Macy. Initially, Macy seemed awkward when talking to me, but as she saw how I skillfully handled unforeseen issues during the project, she started to open up, saying, "You're pretty capable." Honestly, I was used to managing projects like these because of my previous job experience, so it wasn't a big challenge for me. Although I usually make an effort to stay under the radar, I know the importance of teamwork for project success. Not wanting to inconvenience Macy, I fully utilized my skills. Macy gradually opened up to me and said, "To be honest, I was wondering how it would be working with you, Dave, but you are very, very easy to work with and very helpful. I feel like I am being supported rather than supporting you." Together, we successfully delivered the project to the client. The accurate and timely work earned praise, and Eugene said, "You two were a great help. I'll be counting on you for more project tasks in the future," with a pleased expression. Macy even commented, "You're so skilled. You should put yourself out there more instead of trying to stay in the background." However, remembering past failures, I could only respond with a forced smile, saying, "Oh no, that's not for me." Thanks to the success of that project, the client gave positive feedback, and Eugene began pairing me and Macy for projects more often, which naturally brought us closer. Macy was a beautiful, highly capable career woman. Rather than being gentle, she was a strong, decisive person. Although this industry is male-dominated, she never let her gender stop her from making firm points or addressing mistakes gracefully. She was popular in our department because of her competence and professionalism. As I started working more frequently with someone as admired as Macy, I couldn't help but develop feelings for her, while also becoming the target of jealous stares. Among those who weren't thrilled about this was our coworker Noah. Everyone in the department knew that Noah had feelings for Macy. He made the most overt attempts to win her over, and many assumed he was the closest to her. Yet, of all people, it was me, someone who seemed to have no connection to Macy, who got to work with her often and grow closer to her, which visibly irritated Noah. Noah, who prided himself on being a Harvard graduate, began openly undermining me in front of Macy to win her favor. "Macy, why don't you have lunch with me instead of wasting your time with someone like Dave? I'm sure a Harvard graduate like me would have a much richer conversation with someone as brilliant as you. Hey, Macy, are you free after work today? Let's be honest. Dave probably can't afford to treat you to dinner anyway, since he just switched jobs. I'll cover everything, so let's go." It must be exhausting dealing with someone so boring, right? You can vent to me about anything. This kind of unbearable flirting and blatant jabs at me became more and more frequent. Though I had worked so hard to remain inconspicuous, I decided to ignore it as much as possible since it didn't directly interfere with my work or escalate into outright harassment. Still, Macy rejected all of Noah's invitations, showing no interest in him whatsoever. Amid these mixed feelings, we were assigned to an unusual project that came directly from the New York headquarters to our Los Angeles branch. It was a project tailored for Los Angeles, with our branch taking the lead. Given the scale of the project, multiple members from our department were involved, including me, Macy, and Noah. As we progressed through the project as part of the same team, Noel's hostility toward me became ever more apparent. He frequently mocked me and offloaded trivial tasks onto me. Noticing this, Macy called him out, saying, "Noah, don't you think this behavior is childish? This is work. Act more professionally." But her words didn't deter him. If anything, his petty harassment worsened. He handed me an obviously incomplete program with instructions to fix it, and when I spent time addressing the issues, he would loudly say, "How long are you going to take on a simple fix? This is why you're useless." Once, when I stepped away from my desk, I returned to find a file I had been working on closed without being saved. I took responsibility for not being cautious and started locking my screen whenever I left my desk. But even then, Noah found a way to taunt me. Who locks their screen just for stepping away? This room is only accessible to the project team. What's the matter? Afraid people will see how slow and incompetent you are? Unlike before, his harassment began to interfere with my work, making me question the point of my efforts to remain unnoticed. Why did I even bother trying to fade into the background? My mental state started to deteriorate, but Macy's support helped me navigate through Noel's interference. I managed to stay on track and worked hard to ensure the project's success. This clearly irked Noel further. He tried to distance me from Macy by seeing us apart and interrupted whenever we talked, saying things like, "Do you really have time to chat right now?" He is a self-proclaimed elite graduate of Harvard University, a guy who can get the job done. If only he could gain more experience, he could become a bigger player. That's also the reason he was appointed as the leader of this project team. He has a good relationship with the people around him, probably because he has a lot of good friends. However, this backfired, as most people turned a blind eye to the harassment against me. I gradually felt as if my heart was being sobered up. One day, we received word that a senior executive from the New York headquarters, who had been instrumental in securing this project, would visit for an inspection. Noah, eager to make a good impression, seemed temporarily too focused on his work to bother me, which gave me some relief. However, my brief sense of respite was soon shattered. Noah handed me a program, saying, "This thing is full of holes. As you can see, fix it. Don't worry, I've clearly outlined how I want it done." Reluctantly, I accepted the task and immersed myself in the work. Though the program had flaws, it was oddly complete in some aspects. His instructions, however, addressed issues unrelated to the actual problems. Fixing the program was time-consuming, leading to late nights. Eventually, the day of the executive's visit arrived, and the office was bustling from the morning. Finally, finishing the program Noah had assigned me, I let out a sigh of relief. Suddenly, the office fell silent. The executive had arrived. As usual, I tried to stay unnoticed. "Nice to meet you all. I'm Harry. I appreciate your hard work. Let's get straight to it. What's the progress on this project?" The key points for review were shared in advance, but I'd like to hear how things stand in practice. Noah, as the project leader, responded confidently, "Yes, regarding the points you mentioned in the materials." From my seat, I couldn't see Harry, but his voice sounded familiar. As Noah continued presenting, his tone abruptly changed. "What is this? This is unacceptable." Startled, I looked up to see Noah glaring at me. "Hey, the instructions I gave you aren't fixed at all. The program is a complete mess," he shouted. His intense anger left me flustered, but I was confident in my work. Determined, I walked over to Noah. What I saw was a flawlessly corrected program and a familiar face looking at me in surprise. "You are," Harry murmured, clearly recognizing me. Ignoring the tension, I reviewed the program and calmly stated to Noah, "There's no issue with this program. It's functioning perfectly." "No, this can't be true. Look, this section here doesn't match my instructions. You changed it on your own." Noah continued yelling furiously. I double-checked the documentation in my hand and confirmed that the program had been corrected exactly as instructed. However, upon closer inspection, I realized the original program was nearly complete. It became clear that Noah had given me a finished program and fabricated issues in an attempt to make it look like I had messed it up, setting a trap to discredit me. Still confident in my corrected program, I said firmly, "No, this is correct and functioning as intended. Why can't you just follow my instructions? I don't need your input. Do you understand the difference between you, a state university graduate, and me, a Harvard-educated elite? You were supposed to fix it exactly as I told you." Noah shouted repeatedly in front of Harry. I calmly pointed out the flaws in Noah's original program and explained how the incorrect instructions could have worsened it. Ironically, my adjustments had resolved the program's issues, making it even better. Noah, his face turning bright red, snapped, "What? There's no way someone like you could pull that off. You're just trying to show off in front of the executive, aren't you?" He advanced toward me aggressively, but before he could escalate further, Harry stepped in. "Did you fix this program?" Harry asked me directly. "Yes," I replied without hesitation. "Fine, there's no problem here," Harry said with a reassuring smile, leaving Noah frozen in disbelief. "What? Why?" Noah asked, ignoring Harry. Harry turned to me with a familiar expression and asked, "By the way, what are you doing here?" "Well, I switched jobs," I replied sheepishly, scratching the back of my head. Harry was my former boss. After graduating from college, I had worked as a programmer at a major company where Harry had been my supervisor. Apparently, he had also left the company and was now working at the New York headquarters of my current company. "Dave, I was worried about you," Harry said, his voice tinged with nostalgia as he grabbed my shoulder with a near-tearful expression. "I'm sorry for what happened." At that time, I replied lightly, patting his arm to reassure him. At my previous company, I had been overworked to the point of breaking due to my timid nature and a strong emphasis on teamwork. I could never refuse requests for help. Coupled with my solid programming foundation from college and self-taught skills since high school, I became an immediate asset, one my coworkers exploited. "Dave will handle it. You can count on Dave. Dave will figure it out." Those constant expectations weighed heavily on me. After a few years, both my body and mind gave out, and I had no choice but to leave. During my recovery, I took on small programming jobs through online platforms and rediscovered my love for this field. Encouraged by that realization, I decided to start fresh and found my current job. To avoid repeating the past, I had been working diligently while staying under the radar. "Dave, you were truly exceptional. I've regretted losing such a talented and promising subordinate ever since. I never imagined we'd meet again like this," Harry said with a warm smile, patting my shoulder as if to say, "Knowing someone of your caliber is part of this project gives me confidence. I'm counting on you. Actually, it's a waste for someone like you to remain in a general position. Once this project is done, I'll recommend you for a role like technical lead or software architect, something that matches your skills," Harry said enthusiastically. "Wait, what?" I began to protest. "Hold on a minute. Why him?" Noah shouted, unable to contain himself. Harry's expression shifted as he frowned. "Why are you speaking about Dave like that? Do you even understand who he is?" "Fine, let me explain. Are you familiar with this system?" Harry mentioned a renowned system in the industry. It was a well-known system that no one working in this industry would not know. Of course, it's a widely adopted system the major corporation released a few years ago, Noah replied, still confused but eager to show he knew the reference. "Yes, and the person who developed that system is Dave, standing right here," Harry said, his tone laced with disbelief that Noah hadn't known. Noah's face turned pale as he stammered, "That can't be." Before collapsing into his chair, after it came to light that Noah had given me false instructions out of personal spite, he was removed from the project. Feeling his pride shattered, Noah ultimately resigned from the company. but there is no doubt that he is also an elite. In fact, when we worked together, there were a number of aspects where I could sense his qualities. Although my experience was often superior to his, he boasts of being an elite Harvard graduate, and I sensed that this was genuine. If he could channel his ambition in a more constructive direction, I believed he could recover and thrive, Harry added. Months passed since the executive's visit. The large-scale project progressed smoothly and was finally completed. The client's feedback was overwhelmingly positive, and the project concluded as a resounding success. Thanks in part to Harry's endorsement, my reputation within the company soared, and I started receiving more significant responsibilities. While memories of past failures lingered, I made sure to carefully manage the workload I accepted so as not to overburden myself again. Still, the stress must have shown on my face, as Macy, always perceptive and thoughtful, was there to assist me. Her support ensured I didn't feel overwhelmed as I began regaining confidence little by little. Discussions about promoting me to technical lead surfaced, but I still hadn't completely overcome my past trauma. While I enjoyed my work, the thought of managing both my responsibilities and leading a team felt overwhelming. I believed my current position was just right for me. When I declined the promotion repeatedly, word reached Harry, who contacted me directly. "I heard you've been turning down the promotion. Is that true?" he asked. It was just like him to get straight to the point in emails. "Yes, it's true. I should have told you earlier, but it's too much for me. I broke down both physically and mentally before and ended up leaving my previous job. I can't risk repeating the same mistake. I'm fine staying as I am," I replied. While I appreciated Harry's faith in my abilities, I was already juggling important tasks that kept me on edge. With Macy's help, I was managing, but I feared taking on more might lead me down the same path as before. I couldn't let myself resign irresponsibly again. If that day ever came, I might as well consider freelancing and working independently. That was my honest thought. A few minutes later, Harry replied, "All right, let's talk it over. I'll be visiting the Santa Monica branch this weekend. Afterward, why don't we meet up at that bar we used to go to?" I hesitated for a moment, but ultimately agreed. Harry was not only a supervisor I respected, but also someone who genuinely cared about me. I replied, "Sure," because I felt the same way about wanting to talk. Later, on the agreed day, "There you are, Dave. Over here," Harry said. "Sorry I'm late. Work ran a bit long." When I arrived, Harry was already waiting. Caught up in the chaos of a new project, I had been running behind schedule. "Don't worry about it. I heard you're working on that big project next. It'll be tough, but don't overdo it, all right," Harry said, his tone casual and encouraging. I quickly brought up the main topic. "Harry, I was happy when you suggested making me the lead. It made me feel recognized, even now. But I can't do it. It's too much for me." I spoke plainly, and Harry scratched his head thoughtfully. "You're right. I wouldn't want to force the role on you either. It wouldn't do anyone any good if things went the same way as before. But Dave, the problem is that you're too hard on yourself. You keep telling yourself it's too much, that you'll fail to meet expectations. But that's because you're trying to do everything on your own. Don't you think?" His words hit me like a revelation. Indeed, I had been running away from the idea that I couldn't go any further on my own until now. "But so, what do you want me to do?" I looked down, unable to see the answer. Having a sense of responsibility is a good thing, but you have too much sense of responsibility. Because you have too much, you become irresponsible. Too much responsibility leading to irresponsibility. I repeated, confused, and asked Harry a little more assertively, "What do you mean by that?" Taking responsibility for your work is important, no question about that. But when your sense of responsibility drives you to try to perform perfectly to meet everyone's expectations and to carry everything on your shoulders alone, you'll eventually reach your limit and break. And when you do, everything you were responsible for collapses. Isn't that the ultimate irresponsibility? His words struck a nerve, leaving me speechless. Taking responsibility for my work had always been my motto, but now, hearing Harry's perspective, I felt a deep unease. If carrying everything alone wasn't the right approach, then what should I do? You're an incredibly cooperative person, Dave, Harry continued, his voice softer now. But you don't need to shoulder everything alone. Looking back, I should have helped you realize this sooner, and that's on me. If you have a flaw, it's that you don't trust those around you enough. His words made me pause. I never wanted to become someone like that, someone who hurt others by shirking their duties. But isn't that just shifting the burden onto others? I asked, my voice tinged with doubt. Harry began speaking as if he had been waiting for me to ask. It's natural for you to feel that way, Dave, but it's not quite right. Delegating work to someone you trust isn't the same as pushing it onto them. When you're in a leadership role, learning how to manage people is just as important as the work itself, and you've taught me that. The key is putting the right person in the right role, the right tool for the right task. Assigning tasks thoughtfully and ensuring no one feels overwhelmed or burdened unfairly is crucial. And when someone's struggling, it's okay to ask someone else with capacity to help. Work isn't meant to be done alone. Even so, I've been doing everything on my own for so long, I wouldn't even know how to rely on others. I lowered my head again, unable to meet his gaze. Have you really been alone? When I visited before, I got the impression that there's already at least one person you trust and rely on. I froze, his words striking me unexpectedly. Macy. She had been there for me countless times, lending her help and advice when I needed it most. I had even entrusted her with tasks that were originally mine. It seems I'm right. Good. Keep building on that. Expand your circle of trust, and you'll not only grow as a leader, but as a person. Dave, you've got what it takes to become someone great, Harry said with a knowing smile. Though I wasn't entirely ready to embrace the idea of a promotion, Harry's words gave me the resolve to take a step forward. I decided to accept the challenge of becoming a technical lead. A few months later, my team had become lively and energetic. Dave, I never expected you to be such a talker. You've really surprised me. Your ideas are always so creative. Dave, nobody else would have thought of that. Dave, if you have a moment, could you take a look at this? Hey, don't overload Dave just because he's capable. Let me help out. What's the issue? The once quiet, invisible yes man had become someone known for being approachable, resourceful, and respected by his coworkers. And Macy, as always, continued to support me. Leading my team as technical lead for several months, I found myself not just working but enjoying conversations, exchanging ideas, and even hanging out with coworkers. Compared to my old company, the relationships I built here felt healthy and fulfilling. And so, Dave, you're probably getting comfortable with your new team. How about we put your skills to the test? Absolutely. I may still be an inexperienced leader, but I have my team now. Together, we'll achieve something great. Our team took on its first major project, and I addressed them with renewed confidence during a morning briefing. This is our first big project as a team. My instructions may still be a bit rough, but I'll assign tasks based on everyone's strengths, and as always, I'll be hands-on with the project. So if there's anything you find difficult, come to me anytime. Let's make this a success together. At the end of the regular briefing, I once again addressed the team. Members, got it. Watching you lead this project is inspiring, Dave. I'll do my best too. Looking around at my supportive team, I felt at ease. Dave, once again, best wishes. From here on out, don't be such a convert. You are fine the way you are. She giggles teasingly and says, I'll take your word for it. I'm counting on you from now on. Let's work hard together. I smile. In that moment, I couldn't help but think how wonderful Macy was. Looking back, It was thanks to Harry and Macy that I was able to take this step forward. When I once asked Macy why she supported me so much, she seemed surprised but then laughed. I guess I have a knack for management. Helping you do your best is just fun for me, she said, blushing slightly. Besides, I can't just leave you alone, Tave. Looking at her, I found myself wondering, could I really let my relationship with Macy end as just co-workers? The thought of it, I hated it. As I wrestled with my emotions, I finally came to terms with how I truly felt about her. Blushing as much as she had earlier, I managed to say, "Let me treat you to dinner sometime as a thank you." That was the best I could muster at the time. After that, we went out for dinner several times, and eventually, we began dating. Years later, we would get married, but at that moment, neither of us could have imagined that future. Through this journey, I learned that responsibility is not something to be pushed onto others, nor something to be carried alone. It's a shared weight that a team must shoulder together. By placing people in the roles where they can shine, offering a hand when someone struggles, and lending support when you have the capacity to do so, you create the foundation for true teamwork. I came to deeply understand that relying on others and accepting their support is not a sign of weakness, but rather a source of strength that amplifies everyone's potential, including my own. With mutual care and consideration, any challenge can be overcome, not just in work, but in life as well. James is my name. I work in an office and am 40 years old. I've been working exclusively in sales for the same company for a long time. I was on my way to a client meeting today in order to finalize a $30 million deal. As far as I was concerned, the day would wind up being one of the best of my life, and the sky was clear. But surprises abound in life. I happened upon a man who was covered in blood as I was en route to the client's office. I thought he might have been assaulted right away, even though it wasn't a car accident. Even though I understood that getting involved could bring me into trouble, I couldn't ignore it. Before I knew it, I had walked up to him and inquired, "Are you okay?" The man was too feeble to even let out a moan. "This is not good. I'll immediately call for an ambulance." I said, "Hang in there," and took out my phone. A paramedic came over to me as soon as the ambulance pulled up. They apparently wanted me to accompany them in the ambulance and had questions for me because I was the one who discovered the injured man. However, I would undoubtedly be late for the meeting if I did that, and the $30 million agreement would be lost if you were late. What ought I to do? The paramedics almost pulled me into the ambulance while I was hesitating. Oh no. I boarded the ambulance. This is not good. But after we go to the hospital, I'll give them a call and explain the situation, I thought. But even after getting to the hospital, I was unable to make the call until more than 2 hours after the appointed time. I was late by 2 hours. It's a catastrophe, I whispered to myself. However, there was no opportunity for discussion because the individual on the other end gave a chilly, matter-of-fact response. This is not good. Maybe I should call back later once they've cooled down, I thought. In the end, despite the brilliant blue sky, my heart was clouded as I returned to the office. I was instructed to report to the CEO's office as soon as I arrived. I knocked on the door, bracing myself. Even if I receive a reprimand, it won't last forever. I promised myself that I would apologize and get past this. I received a response from the other side of the door, and as soon as I entered, I became aware of my ignorance. This was because I had never seen Mr. Andrews' expression so stern. As I moved forward, I reasoned that I couldn't make this go away with an apology. I started apologizing right away. "I apologize for the meeting," he yelled. "What on earth were you thinking?" Before I could continue, "It is completely unacceptable to be late for a meeting of this importance. Are you attempting to force this business into bankruptcy?" Obviously not. Their agent called me, and they were enraged. "I apologize." "What were you doing? Oversleeping?" "No, I arrived in the area 30 minutes early as usual, but I came across an injured man and had to call an ambulance. How does calling an ambulance make you this late? Well, they asked me to ride with them so they could get my statement. And you just went along with it? Yes, I was the only one around who could help. You should have left it to someone else. What if this costs the company everything? I didn't think it would lead to that, but I knew being late was bad. I planned to call as soon as I got to the hospital, but I couldn't. Why couldn't you? You knew how important this meeting was. Why didn't you refuse to go with them? You know better than this. How long have you been in sales? I'm really sorry. Sorry doesn't fix everything. I plan to call them once the representative has calmed down. I'm sure they'll understand if I explain the situation. Then I'm confident we can get back to the negotiation table. What are you talking about? Do you honestly think it's that simple? The client representative said they never want to see your face again. They also said they no longer wish to do business with our company. What? It's that serious. What you did caused this situation. I'll head over to the client right away and explain everything in person. They won't listen to you. Can't you see how furious they are? Do you think you're some kind of hero because you helped someone? No, that's not what I was trying to do. Who was this person you helped? Was it a beautiful woman? No, it was a middle-aged man. Was he wealthy? I have no idea. Then why bother helping him if he wasn't even rich? What? There are plenty of poor people in the world. Helping one of them won't make any difference. Someone else would have helped them anyway. No, there was no one else around. It was just me. So what? What does that matter? Our company is on the verge of collapsing, and you're over here playing the hero. I see. What's with that half-hearted response? Tell me, how will you take responsibility if this company goes under because of you? If the company collapses, I can't take responsibility. But I still believe helping someone in need is the right thing to do. If there had been anyone else there, I would have left it to them. But there wasn't. I couldn't just walk away. That's the problem. Doing the right thing doesn't always mean doing what's beneficial. All you've achieved is self-satisfaction. No, this wasn't about self-satisfaction. Wouldn't you help someone in need in that situation, Mr. Andrews? Anyone would want to help if they saw someone bleeding out like that. And so what? What? And so what if that's true? Well, I mean, wouldn't you? Do you think I would have done the same? Helping someone when my company might collapse. Knowing that if the company goes under, the employees and their lives would fall apart. And yet you still think I'd help someone like that. You've always been too soft, never growing out of it. Just like the time you were late for an important meeting because you helped a pregnant woman in labor, which achieved nothing. Because the only thing that truly matters is the company, not someone else's life. That's too cruel. Isn't there anything more important than human lives? Think about what happened here. By saving that one person's life, you've put this entire company and its employees at risk. $30 million is gone because of you. Are you saying it's not about the employees but your company you care about? That's exactly what I'm saying. My company comes first. Protecting it is the only way to protect the employees. And since you don't get that, you're fired. What? You're firing me just like that? Write your resignation and disappear. You can't just fire me out of the blue like this. It's unfair dismissal. Unfair? What about you nearly bankrupting the company? You think I want to see your face here every day after this? I didn't mean it that way. Then get out of here. After being told all that, it was clear that saying anything more would be pointless. I returned to my desk and began packing up my belongings. Meanwhile, something alarming was happening at the reception area. A group of men, who unmistakably looked like gang members, had shown up and were causing a commotion. This company had never had any dealings with gangs, nor had I ever heard of any connection to them. Understandably, The receptionist's face was frozen in fear. Bring out that punk from this morning. The demand came from Travis, the underboss of the Sanders gang, who was flanked by a group of men in black suits. Later, I heard that Travis claimed he neither intended to intimidate nor shout at the receptionist. Still, he couldn't understand why she had been so frightened. However, terrified by the sight of the gang, the receptionist contacted Mr. Andrews. At first, Mr. Andrews hung up the phone after saying, "Send them away." However, after another call came from reception a short while later, he decided to check out the situation himself and headed to the front desk. Just as I was walking near the reception area, carrying a box of my personal belongings, I happened to overhear the commotion. "What do you mean by this morning?" "I know he's one of your employees, so bring out the guy from this morning." "I'm not sure what you mean," Mr. Andrews replied, clearly baffled. He was unsure who they were talking about. I thought it had nothing to do with me. With that in mind, I attempted to pass by unnoticed. However, Travis spotted me and shouted, "That's him." Hearing, "That's him," I took another step forward, thinking there was no way he meant me. But when I glanced back, his finger was unmistakably pointing in my direction. Seeing this, Mr. Andrews grabbed my arm. "Is it this man?" "Yeah, that's him." "In that case, by all means, take him. He was just fired from our company moments ago, so he has nothing to do with us anymore. You're free to do whatever you like with him." To my astonishment, Mr. Andrews handed me over to the gang without hesitation. I was utterly shocked. I never expected him to say such a thing. And more than that, I couldn't believe he would make such a remark to actual gang members. Thinking it was some kind of joke, I tried to brush it off. However, the gang, seemingly unfazed, grabbed my arm and ordered in a commanding tone, "Get in the car." Are you kidding me? Is today cursed? That's what I thought, but they were gang members. Saying the wrong thing could get me punched, or worse. Besides, having just been fired, I was in a state of reckless abandon, ready to face whatever came my way. "Understood," I said. With that, I did as Travis instructed and got into the car. Although outwardly compliant, in my heart, I was thinking, I'll never forgive Mr. Andrews. I'll hold a grudge against him forever. As I was driven away, I had no idea where we were heading. What exactly do you need from me?" I asked hesitantly. "You helped a man this morning, didn't you?" Yes, I did." "That man is the leader of our Sanders gang." "What? Really?" "Yeah. If you hadn't helped him, he would have been on his way to the other side by now." "Why, though?" I wondered, but I couldn't ask. Whether it was a gang turf war or an assassination attempt on the leader, there was no way I could bring that up. So I decided to stick to a safer topic. "Is Mr. Sanders doing okay now?" "Yeah, he's doing fine. Thanks to your quick thinking, he got treated in time. He's in good shape now." After being so close to crossing the river Styx, could someone really recover that quickly? Or were they just exaggerating? I wasn't sure about the details, but for the moment, all I could say was, "That's good to hear." As we continued our polite conversation, the car arrived at a hospital. I was then guided to a VIP hospital room. The room was unlike anything I had ever seen before. Not only was it spacious, but it also had a luxurious sofa and a bed that looked nothing like standard hospital fare. As expected of a gang boss, getting admitted to a VIP suite like this. The woman sitting beside Mr. Sanders glanced at me, then gently shook his arm and whispered something to him. Mr. Sanders opened his eyes and looked at me. "Ah, it's you. You're the one who saved me, aren't you?" The face was undoubtedly the same man I helped this morning. "Yes, that's correct." "Thank you. I owe you my life." "I'm glad I could help. But how did you know I worked at that company?" "Oh, I asked the police who saved me from there. I looked up the company, and it was easy to figure out." "I see. That's impressive. By the way, are you heading somewhere with that box of yours? I glanced at the box and forced a smile. No, I was just fired. What? Fired? What happened? Or do you not want to talk about it? No, it's fine. Actually, there was a big client meeting today, but I was 2 hours late. By the time I called the client, they were already furious. My boss, who got an earful from them, lost his temper and decided to fire me, saying he never wanted to see my face again. So, in a way, this is my fault. No, it's just how things turned out. It was probably inevitable. What do you mean? It's not anyone's fault. It was just bad timing. Who was the client? I can speak to them and get you back in the meeting. Maybe they'll reconsider and your boss can reverse the firing. No, that won't be necessary. The company was already a toxic place, and this situation made me realize I don't want to work under that boss anymore. It's actually a relief. But won't being fired cause problems for you? It would be a lie to say it doesn't, but I can't stay in a place where the boss doesn't value human life. That company will probably go under eventually. This just sped things up. Human life. Oh, don't worry about it. I recalled how my boss berated me for prioritizing saving a life over a business deal. However, telling Mr. Sanders about it wouldn't sit well as it involved both him and the situation with my former boss. Thinking that, I decided to leave the details vague. It's fine. I wanted to quit anyway, so this worked out for the best. Well, I see. So, what's next for you? I'll take it easy for a bit and then look for another job. I've always been in sales, so I'll probably continue in that field. Sales? Huh. Well, no matter what, you saved my life. If you ever need anything, let me know, and I'll do whatever I can to help. Mr. Sanders handed me his business card. But no matter how grateful he was, I wasn't about to start associating with the gang. I tucked the card deep into my wallet and decided to push this experience to the back of my mind. However, about a month later, something unexpected happened. I received a call from Travis, whom I had almost forgotten about. This is Travis, the underboss of the Sanders gang. Hearing Sanders gang immediately brought back memories of that day. Oh, the gang's underboss? What could this be about? Travis spoke to me over the phone in a friendly manner. His voice was gentle and gave me no reason to feel suspicious or uneasy. Thanks to you, Mr. Sanders has recovered quite well. We'd like to thank you. How about grabbing a drink on us? Still jobless and with plenty of free time, I figured it wouldn't hurt and agreed to meet him. The meeting spot turned out to be a casual bar. Given my image of underbosses frequenting fancy establishments, I was surprised but also relieved by the choice. The lively atmosphere and small private room felt welcoming. After ordering some familiar dishes from the menu, we exchanged greetings once more. Sorry for inviting you to a place like this when it's supposed to be a gesture of thanks. Travis laughed as he spoke, his face looking incredibly calm. Not at all. I actually feel more comfortable in a place like this. Honestly, I feel the same. I might seem like I prefer nice restaurants, but I relax more in places like this. Same here. Fancy places are way too intimidating for me. We shared a laugh, and once the mood was easygoing, Travis broached the topic. So, have you found a new job yet? Not at all. I'm still looking. So, still nothing. Yes. So, what kind of work are you looking for? Rather than something new, I'll likely stay in the same industry since I've been in sales for so long. But it seems Mr. Andrews has been spreading rumors about me, and other companies aren't exactly welcoming me during interviews. That's terrible. It really is. I suppose I could try a different industry, but somehow I feel stuck. It's foolish, isn't it? No, it just shows how much pride you've taken in your work, doesn't it? Well, I suppose so. I see. In that case, why not start your own business? What? Forgive me, But I did some research on you. From what I found, you're a dedicated worker who always considers others. It seems like many of your former colleagues respected you. Did they really? Exactly. That's why I'm suggesting you start your own company. I appreciate the idea, but the problem is funding. Starting a business is one thing, but I'd need enough capital and people to make it work, and I simply don't have that kind of money. Funding, huh? But with your expertise, you could make it happen, couldn't you? Of course, I have the experience and connections, and I'd love to do it. Then, if funding wasn't an issue, would you go for it? Yes, if I had the capital, I'd definitely give it a shot. I see. The Sanders gang will fund it for you. What? How about starting with $500,000? If you need more, just say the word. That's unbelievable. Consider it an investment. Mr. Sanders insisted on it, saying, "He saved my life, so now it's our turn to help him." For something like this, no expense is too great. But this is a risky endeavor. There's no guarantee of success. Listen, you're going to succeed. And you know as well as anyone that if you approach this with doubt, you're bound to fail. Go into it with confidence, and you'll make it work. He was right. I had learned through countless deals that fear of failure often leads to failure itself. Whenever I pursued a deal, I focused solely on success and never let doubt cloud my efforts. That's why I'm investing in you. I know you'll succeed. Travis pulled out a checkbook and wrote $500,000 on a check. Now you have no choice but to start your own company. Best of luck. Thank you so much. I shook Travis's hand firmly, ordered another beer, and raised a toast to the future. The next day, I began preparations to start my own business. The first priority was hiring staff. But bringing in people unfamiliar with the work wouldn't help, so I reached out to former colleagues from my old company, people I trusted. At first, they laughed and said it was an unrealistic idea. But when I explained how serious I was and that I had the funding, they became enthusiastic and agreed to join me, offering their support as my right-hand partners. From there, things moved quickly. We secured an office and visited former clients to reestablish connections. When they heard about my new venture, many were happy to offer their support. The business grew steadily. What started with just 2 people expanded to include office staff and more salespeople, all of whom were former colleagues. A year later, the company was thriving, generating significant profits. One day, I received a call from Mr. Sanders. He said he had something to discuss and asked me to visit his home. Curious about what it could be, I went to his residence. What he said there took me completely by surprise. "Your company seems to be doing quite well." "Yes, thanks to you. It's going great." "Good. Then how about going after that $30 million deal you missed?" "What? The $30 million deal?" "But It was with Miller Trading, wasn't it?" "Yes, that's correct. You're well informed." "I don't miss a thing." At Miller Trading, the department head happens to be a friend of mine. When I told him what happened, he was shocked, saying he couldn't believe you were fired for saving my life. He said if you're the kind of man who can prioritize saving a life over a major deal, you're someone he can trust. So, he wants to give you another chance to start from scratch. Of course, just because I put in a good word doesn't mean it'll be easy. This is where your skills come into play. So, how about it? No pressure, but do you want to give it a shot? I'm thrilled. If I can secure a deal like that, my company will soar to the top of the industry. Great, then go for it. I trust your abilities. Thank you so much. And so, I took on the challenge with Miller Trading, and the deal was a resounding success. Thanks to that, my company grew rapidly, with profits steadily rising. This growth is amazing, but we're short on staff. If this continues, my employees will be overwhelmed, I thought. I decided to reach out to former colleagues from my old company. As news of my company's success spread, More and more of them expressed interest in joining, and many made the move. This led to a staff shortage at my previous company. When Mr. Andrews learned of this, he was curious. What's going on? Why are my employees jumping ship to a startup? They owe their livelihoods to me. He called me in a rage. Hey James, what's the meaning of stealing my employees? I didn't steal anyone. We're short-staffed, so I simply reached out. It was their choice to join us. People don't just leave because you asked. Are you offering them higher salaries? Partly, yes. Your pay was too low, and I offer fair compensation. So, they're all leaving because of that. That's part of it, but not the whole story. What else then? They probably couldn't tolerate working under a boss like you, cold and unfeeling. If you want them back, go ahead and ask. It's up to them where they want to work. Don't get cocky. One day, they'll all abandon you and come running back to me. Don't cry when that happens. Despite his threats, no one returned to his company. Even when he offered higher salaries, the employees refused. In the end, Mr. Andrews gave up and tried to make do by hiring inexperienced newcomers. New hires cost less, so this is actually better for the company, he claimed. But with no experienced staff to guide them, the company's operations faltered. Reports of Mr. Andrews yelling at his inexperienced staff became commonplace. Why can't you even do that? I know you're new, but this is ridiculous. However, without experienced mentors to guide them, it was inevitable that the new hires would struggle. Eventually, the company's reputation worsened, with rumors spreading in the industry that doing business with them was expensive and ineffective. As a result, the company's credibility plummeted. Finally, the outcome Mr. Andrews feared the most, bankruptcy, came to pass. What's worse, he fled without paying his employees, leaving the company in ruins with no chance of recovery. Meanwhile, I brought in his former employees as new hires at my company, instructing senior staff to train them and focusing on developing skilled workers through proper mentorship. While considering hiring even more employees, one day, a man knocked on the company gate. Well, if it isn't Mr. Andrews. Oh, that's right. Your company went bankrupt, didn't it? Which means you're no longer a CEO, are you? It was the same Mr. Andrews who once valued his company above all else. What brings you to my company? I heard your company is hiring. Yes, that's right. Here, we ensure proper training for new hires and aim to develop them into exceptional employees. Would you consider hiring me? What? You fired me, and now you're asking me for a job. That's quite a request. Our ways of thinking couldn't be more different. Please don't say that. I've lost everything and have nowhere else to go. I'm desperate. If you join my company, the first thing you'll have to do is pay the wages of the employees you left unpaid. Are you prepared for that? Why should I have to do that? That's all in the past. No, your atonement isn't over yet. If you're serious about working here, that's where you start. That's impossible. Mr. Andrews sank to his knees and burst into tears. After that, he disappeared from the industry entirely, and no one knew where he went. Hearing about this, Mr. Sanders, with a drink in hand, asked me, "Hey James, why didn't you hire the Andrews guy?" Andrews? You mean the former CEO? Yeah. If you had hired him and put him under you, you could have made him suffer as much as you wanted. After everything he did to you, wouldn't that have been fair? If I did that, I'd be no different from him. I don't care what happens to him, but I won't stoop to his level or take pleasure in his suffering. That sounds like some idealistic nonsense. Maybe it is, but it's my ideals that have brought me this far. And it's because of them that you believed in me, isn't it? Ha! This guy knows how to talk. Mr. Sanders chuckled. I'm sorry, but dragging someone down only leads to your own downfall. I'd rather help people than destroy them. Besides, I don't need to do anything. He's already headed for his own hell. Yeah, I guess you're right about that. With that, Mr. Sanders let out a hearty laugh, clearly amused and impressed. Dude, it's really uncool to show up to a mixer wearing a tracksuit. That is not acceptable. Why don't you simply go home? A classmate from middle school invited me to drinks. I arrived wearing my casual tracksuit after being informed that it was only a get-together with old classmates. But when I got there, I saw that it was a mixer rather than just a casual get-together. There was no going back now that the women were there. Did I aggravate you? Are you angry? Don't take it personally. It was a joke. Ha. The organizer, a former classmate, would dismiss it as a joke when I attempted to react strongly. Despite the somewhat unpleasant atmosphere, I decided it was unavoidable and made my way to the bar. One of the women that arrived then muttered something. Jason is my name. Although I'm simply a regular person, there is one aspect of me that may be a little out of the ordinary. I will always be a sucker for tracksuits. Even though I've seen a lot of utilitarian apparel lately, I often ask myself, isn't a tracksuit good enough? It offers the ideal amount of stretch, is comfortable without being overly tight, is quick to dry, and is easy to clean. The designs are also cool. I could discuss the advantages for ages. I'm a huge fan of tracksuits. My closet is practically stuffed with them, and I have separate ones for sports and ones for relaxing at home. My love of sports is possibly the reason I prefer to wear tracksuits. I was balancing several sports groups in primary school, including tennis, basketball, and soccer. I had to concentrate on my education and pick just one sport once I reached middle school. After much consideration, I committed myself for 3 years to the basketball squad, which is my favorite. I'm still active as an adult, occasionally spending the weekends playing basketball with pals. I always go to the gym on days when I can't play hoops. I run whenever possible, even when I'm exhausted or preoccupied with work. I've made it a daily routine, and when I can't do it, I get restless. It's probably because I can't wear my sports tracksuits, but it could also be a testimonial to how fulfilling physical activity is for me. Most likely not. I was jogging one day when I had a flashback to something from middle school. It was a memorable experience from the final middle school regional competition. Let this work, please. The heat of summer and the fervor of the audience surrounded me, two kinds of heat at the venue. I prayed out loud. We were losing by a narrow margin in the final minute of the game. As I took the shot, I remember the moment. Until the ball went in or missed, it felt like it was in slow motion. Yes, it went in. After what felt like an eternity, the ball finally passed through the hoop. We not only caught up, but took the lead. Jason. I was celebrating with my teammates, fully convinced we had secured a comeback victory. But then, as if struck by divine punishment for our complacency, the unthinkable happened. No way. You've got to be kidding. In the final moments, our opponents landed a three-pointer. Despite our desperate attempts to take the lead back, we were defeated. Our resistance was in vain. In the end, our complacency led to a bitter loss and a turnaround. Since then, I've lived by the motto, never let your guard down. In basketball, as in everything, you never know what might happen until the very end. Memories of the game brought back images of my teammates sobbing uncontrollably. Now it's just a nostalgic memory, but back then, it felt like the world had ended. Thinking back, I heard the guy who cried the most is now running a company. I'm dumbfounded. That guy, H, I think to myself. But I guess we're all in the same boat. Today was a day off. I planned to go jogging, but what else should I do? Basketball was out since the regular crew couldn't make it. Besides, the weather was unfortunately not suitable for outdoor sports. A bummer for a day off, but maybe it's a chance to do something different. With that in mind, after jogging, I changed into my loungewear tracksuit and stayed indoors. I even cleaned parts of the house I usually don't bother with. For lunch, I whipped up something from leftovers in the fridge. As the evening rolled around and I got bored, I watched a movie I'd been meaning to see on a streaming service. I had some snacks, so I enjoyed them as I watched. That was a thought-provoking story, I thought to myself as the credits rolled, when suddenly my phone on the desk started buzzing. It was a call. Who could it be? Hopefully not work-related. I felt a sense of dread as I picked up the phone. The screen showed the name. Tyler. Tyler was a middle school classmate, someone I rarely kept in touch with. Wondering what it could be about, I muted the TV and answered the call. Hello. Hey, long time no see, came Tyler's voice from the other end of the phone, unchanged since those days. His tone was the same as back then, bringing back vivid memories of the old days. Long time, indeed. What's up? Out of the blue, he said, You know you missed the reunion a while back, right? Everyone was bummed they didn't get to see you. He continued, About half a year ago, I got word of the reunion from another former classmate. I had wanted to go, but unfortunately, work got in the way. As a sort of make-up for that, a few of us from middle school are getting together for drinks tonight. You want to come? Tyler told me about the other members who would be joining. Hearing some familiar names, it definitely seemed like a reunion rematch was in the cards. Got it. I'll be there, I replied. Great. I'll send you the location link in a message. We'll meet there. Sure thing. See you later. I hung up and started getting ready to go out. I heard it was just a casual get-together with classmates, so I didn't bother dressing up and left in my casual tracksuit. The weather was still on and off rain, with darker clouds visible in the distance. Looks like we're in for a heavy downpour, I muttered, slipping a foldable umbrella into my bag and heading out. Walking from a certain station to the designated bar, I spotted a group dressed to the nines. Among them was Tyler, the classmate who had contacted me. He was with a group of women. As I approached, still puzzled, Tyler burst into laughter upon seeing me. Why are you wearing a tracksuit, man? He chuckled. That's when I finally realized this gathering was a mixer. Tyler had lied and said it was just a casual drinking party with classmates, knowing I'd refuse to come if I knew the truth. That's probably it. You still all brawn and no brain, Tyler said, laughing and mocking me. The other classmates laughed along with him, which felt pretty bad. Whatever. Let's go, big guy. Tyler, acting as the organizer and group leader, said and led the way to the bar. Following him in order were the classmates, the women, and then me. Big guy? That's a nostalgic nickname. I murmured to myself, so no one could hear. Big guy was my nickname in middle school. I was big and muscular, and also on the basketball team. I got the nickname because my situation resembled a character in a certain basketball cartoon. Back then, it felt like most people called me that out of respect, but now Tyler seemed to use it mockingly. I'm not the same as I used to be. I don't just do sports all the time. I don't think I'm just a musclehead, but Tyler and the others don't seem to see it that way. Should I snap back or just laugh it off? While I was thinking, Tyler, walking in front, said loudly, Wearing a tracksuit to a mixer is just lame, man. That's a no-go. Why don't you just head home? He had this annoying smirk on his face that reminded me he had always been the type to mock and laugh at others when he got carried away. I'm not good at showing emotions and don't get angry much, but I'm especially bad with such people. They mistake my silence for acceptance. Sigh-faced with Tyler's behavior, I let out a sigh. Does he think I won't get angry no matter what he says? Look, man. Unable to stay silent any longer, I opened my mouth to say something, but Tyler quickly interrupted me with his usual assertiveness. Ah, did I make you mad? Are you upset? It was just a joke. Don't take it seriously. That's his usual tactic. Say something to provoke anger. Then when someone is about to get mad, escape by claiming it was just a joke. This unbeatable phrase is tricky because if you get angry at Tyler's laughing, You're seen as the guy who can't take a joke to everyone else. So, I had to stay calm. I didn't know it was a mixer. Oh, really? Tyler just feigned ignorance when confronted. It was frustrating, but to avoid making more of a scene, I had no choice but to go along with his pace. After all, there were women around, and the mixer partners were all beauties. They were all flight attendants from the same airline. On the way to our seats in the bar, one of them whispered to me, "Captain, why are you hiding it?" Her name was Grace, a female colleague from the same company. The other woman, whom I also knew, kept glancing over. "I'm sorry for making things awkward. I'll explain when I get a chance." Okay. Grace seemed unconvinced, but didn't press any further. Shortly after the mixer started, a man arrived late. I had wondered why there was one man short, but now it made sense. Tyler hadn't explained this either. "Good evening, sorry I'm late," he said in a stylish outfit, making him seem like a completely different entity compared to me in my tracksuit. I recognized him. No, it was more than that. "Isn't that David?" "Hey, long time no see, Jason." He was David, a classmate and teammate from the basketball club. He was the one who cried the most after we lost our last tournament. His impressive attire made sense since he runs an apparel company. "Sorry, can I get a beer?" David sat next to me, smiling as he ordered a beer from the waiter. He introduced himself to the women and smoothly started to blend into the conversation. Unlike Tyler, he didn't mock my tracksuit and seemed to enjoy the conversation. A little while after he joined, he was chatting happily when Tyler abruptly interrupted him. I remembered this guy used to cry a lot in middle school. Tyler's words were meant as a taunt. David responded with a furrowed brow, and it was clear he was remembering, just like I had earlier, that Tyler was always this kind of guy. He used to bawl his eyes out over losing a club match, and remember when he cried because a cicada landed on his shoulder. "Ha." Tyler pointed at David, trying to turn him into the butt of the joke, but Tyler was the only one laughing. "Cut it out, Tyler. It's not funny at all." "Ha, just kidding, man. You're still so serious now." I became the target for defending David. "Right? You've always been like that. No sense of humor. Can't even crack a joke, always just a jock, and you even failed your first choice high school entrance exam." Tyler went on with his insults about me. Right, guys? He sought agreement from the other classmates, but they seemed aware of the situation. "Seriously, it's funny that you came to a mixer in a tracksuit." "Hey, Tyler, just stop, will you?" I looked around. Man, perhaps realizing it only after being told off by those he thought were his lackeys, Tyler stopped. My story was interrupted midway. Indeed, all the women were looking at him with cold, unamused expressions. In that awkward atmosphere, Grace spoke up. "So, Tyler, you can only speak ill of others, huh? Is that all you have to talk about?" She said with a gentle smile, but her choice of words seemed tinged with subtle anger. Upon hearing this, Tyler's face stiffened. "You're not funny, and you're the worst as a person. You're ruining the movie of the party, making it no fun at all. You told Jason to go home earlier, but you should be the one to leave." The other women agreed with Grace. Tyler, seemingly not expecting this, turned red and shook with contained anger. "A joke is supposed to be fun, but yours are just malicious and uncomfortable. It shows your true character." Grace didn't hold back, and the other women nodded in support. None of the men tried to stop her. They must have been feeling the same dissatisfaction towards Tyler. "You bastard." Finally speaking up, Tyler showed no signs of apology or remorse. Instead, he exploded in anger. "Don't get cocky just because you're pretty." He yelled as he walked towards the women, trying to grab Grace. "Well, that's enough." Unable to just stand by, I stepped between Tyler and Grace. I grabbed Tyler's arm, glaring at him to silently convey, "Stop it. I'm still somewhat fit, and I've always been bigger than him, so stopping him was no trouble at all. "Captain, thank you," Grace said loudly, making sure others could hear. The word captain caused a stir among the classmates. Captain. Yeah, she did call Jason captain, didn't she? I had thought I would mention my job when the time was right, but I never expected it to come out like this. Releasing Tyler, who looked dazed, I turned to everyone. Actually, I'm a pilot. My revelation caused my classmates to express their surprise. Grace then added, "We actually work for the same company." I never thought we'd be invited to the same drinking party. While we laughed at the strange coincidence, Tyler slumped to the ground. In middle school, I was too focused on club activities, and my grades weren't great. In high school, I worked hard to balance basketball and studies. All that effort paid off when I got into an aviation college. I only mentioned my dream once, in middle school. I think it was during a break when I was talking about the future with friends. I want to be a pilot someday, to fly freely in the sky. While we were having a good time, Tyler barged in and threw a wet blanket on it. "Come on, a pilot like you could ever become one." Ha! The dream of being a pilot was even older than my basketball days. I kept it alive despite Tyler and his gang mocking it. After that, I never spoke of this dream again, but I never gave up. I secretly continued to work hard, and here I am, a pilot. Tyler slumped on the ground, glaring at me bitterly. To him, I expressed my dissatisfaction. "You haven't changed since middle school, Tyler. You only bring others down to show yourself, but that doesn't mean you're getting any higher. How about realizing that you're an adult now? Aren't you?" He continued to glare. "Why can't you understand that such tactics don't work anymore?" He bit his lip in frustration. Then David added, "Sure, I was a C-grade student, but that was a long time ago." Tyler had never asked about the K, Jason, or David even after more than 10 years since middle school. He clung to the past. "Now I run my own company. Sorry to say, but I think I'm living a much better life than you." David stood up, turning towards Tyler as if showing off his appearance. "Your watch and shoes are mass-produced, and the sewing on your clothes is sloppy. Cheap stuff. Obviously, I'm not saying wearing cheap things is bad, but at least you're not in a position to mock Jason's tracksuit." Embarrassed by the pointing out, Tyler covered his watch with his hand and stood up. His face was again red, a mix of shame and anger. "Shut up. I won't invite any of you ever again." With that, Tyler suddenly ran out of the bar. After he left, the atmosphere of the drinking party became much more pleasant. The classmates who had been close to Tyler seemed to be reflecting, heads down. Sorry for going along and laughing with him. Should have stopped him. Excuse sounds weak, but being around old friends, I guess I got carried away, like returning to childhood. These classmates, as an apology, even offered to pay the whole bill. The gathering no longer felt like a mixer, just a casual drinking party, especially for me, since everyone else was a colleague. The idea of a mixer now seemed embarrassingly out of place. Suddenly, Grace looked at David as if remembering something and spoke. "By the way, David, you often fly on our company's planes, don't you?" "Yeah, I travel overseas a lot for work, so I use them frequently," David replied with a smile. Wait a minute, I hadn't heard about this. David and I had kept in touch occasionally, and he knew which airline I worked for as a pilot. "Hey, David, is that true?" "Yeah, it's true. I didn't say it, but I've been on flights you piloted." "Seriously?" Wow, I was shocked, not knowing David had been on my flights. Every time the captain greeted, I looked forward to seeing if it was you, he said, laughing. Meanwhile, I couldn't laugh. I was embarrassed at being observed at work without knowing that David had started talking about his apparel brand. The women were very interested in his story. David of today bore no resemblance to the boy who cried after losing a game. He had grown into a confident and respectable man. As the party wrapped up, David and I chatted for a bit. "Great seeing you again," he said. "Jason, definitely. It's best to talk face to face, though we messaged each other. Meeting in person was different. I had fun today. Let's drink again sometime." I invited him, but he looked downcast. "David?" I asked, curious. He leaned in as he quietly began to speak. "I've been meaning to tell you I'm moving to Paris for work." "Is that so?" He was leaving the U.S. in just a week. "I'm glad I could see you one last time," he said, extending his hand. Accepting the handshake felt like saying goodbye. For a moment, I thought that, but either way, the reality of parting was inevitable, so I extended my hand too. "Well, it's not like we'll never meet again, right, David? We have messages, and we can call if we want." We shook hands firmly, smiling as we parted ways. A week later, as a captain, I was on a flight to Paris. The weather was clear, and the flight was smooth. Just before landing, I started the in-flight announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, our aircraft will soon be entering its descent. Please prepare for landing by returning your seat backs to their original position, stowing your tray tables, and securing your footrests." I then added instructions about stowing luggage and announced that the cabin crew would be making a final check. After the usual greetings, I continued. "This is a personal message. I had rehearsed it many times in my mind, but the actual moment still made me nervous. A dear friend of mine is on this flight, embarking on a new journey to a new land, ready to spread his wings on the global stage. It is an honor to be part of this significant step in his life. He is a kind person, one who gets angry, cries, and laughs for others. As a friend, it's saddening to part ways with him. However, our airline connects the world, and together with other airlines, it brings the world closer to all our passengers. We look forward to welcoming you aboard again." After saying everything I wanted, I turned off the microphone, taking a deep breath. My co-pilot, Kevin, gave me a small round of applause. "Great speech," Kevin said. "Thanks. I might get in trouble for doing something like this, but it felt right." We shared a laugh. "Right about now, Grace must be giving David a certain package," I said. I had asked her in advance to deliver it. A modest gift for him as he embarks on his journey to new horizons. The package contained 3 things: a group photo taken after our last basketball game in middle school, a letter, and a handkerchief for any tears. I had told her to ask him to open it after reaching his destination, but I wondered if he would wait. Ah, those were the days, I thought, holding the same photo in my hand. I remember David as one who cried a lot, but looking at the photo again, I realized we all had red eyes. I was no exception. "Yeah, that's how it was," Kevin observed, watching silently as I indulged in memories. "It was all because of you, wasn't it?" I said. After narrowly losing the game, we returned to the locker room feeling frustrated and stunned. Even after hearing the coach's words, it still didn't feel like reality. But just before taking the photo, things changed. One of us started crying loudly, David. Back then, we were all holding back tears, but his crying broke the dam. He had voiced our collective emotions. It was a relief for someone like me, who's not good at expressing feelings. I think it was because we could cry openly there that we were able to move forward. Although I didn't pass the first-choice public high school that Tyler mentioned, now that my dream has come true, the distinction between public and private schools seems trivial. Later, after landing, I bumped into David at the airport. It was a bit awkward since the announcement was meant as a farewell. "Jason, you really surprised me with that announcement," David said. His expression was a mix of a laugh and a cry. "Good you heard it," I asked, relieved. "I'm glad. Thanks, Jason. Like you said, the world is close when you're on a plane, and the sky connects us, so I'm not alone." He smiled broadly. Suddenly, he began rummaging through his bag. "By the way, Grace gave me a package from you earlier. Can I open it?" No, Don't open it here. Wait until you're at your hotel or new place, I said. Startled by my insistence, he stopped and said, Okay. Reading a letter in front of me would be too embarrassing, he added. Next time I come back, I'll fly with you again. Take care of me then. Sure thing, I said. We waved our hands wildly and finally parted ways. David's face showed no signs of doubt or anxiety as he walked away. Soon after, his brand began gaining more recognition. According to the message I received, he would soon participate in Paris Fashion Week. Hearing about the remarkable progress of my close friend made me as happy as if it were my own achievement. As a result, his brand is expanding its stores in the U.S., especially popular among young women. In our company, his brand is a constant topic of conversation, not just among Grace and the members who attended that drinking party, but also among senior and new flight attendants. One day, after work, I received a message from David. It's your birthday, right? Here's a return gift for you. Take it. When I opened the delivered cardboard box, inside were 2 tracksuits, top and bottom, with his brand logo. Really, 2 sets, one for lounging and one for exercise. I gratefully accepted them and hung them on a hanger displayed on my wall. When I mentioned it to Grace and the others, they were envious and amazed. As far as I know, his brand hasn't released tracksuits yet, so the birthday present I received was specially made just for me. This fact was a major reason for the envy among the ladies. By the way, I haven't worn the tracksuits even once, despite receiving them months ago. I'd hate to get them dirty as loungewear or tear them during exercise. It's too precious to wear. When I told this to David, he scolded me, saying, "Clothes are meant to be worn." I apologized, but still haven't worn them yet. I wonder when and on what occasion I should wear these special tracksuits. This has become my biggest dilemma lately. Passengers on airplanes come with various emotions, some bored, with joy, others with sadness, excitement, or reluctance for work, tourism, relocation. Not just for our airline, passengers have diverse feelings and purposes. My job is to safely deliver all these different passengers to their destinations. With the tension of carrying my own dreams and the lives of the passengers, I fly through the skies today. Without belittling anyone, I'll continue to strive, holding pride in myself, not just relatively, but absolutely, gazing up at the vast sky. That's the promise I make to myself.